Hi friends, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Today I am bringing you my late January wrap up, as well as doing my February pile of possibilities. Currently I do have a puppy. We got our puppy in the middle of January, so I haven't read as much as I would really like to read, but Puppy is doing well. He is incredible and already knows so many commands and is just a little intelligent genius. He is called Axel. I'll pop in some clips of him, and yes, he's great. And granted, I haven't read as much as I really want to be reading because of him, which is absolutely fine. We are kind of finding our feet and establishing a routine with him. So at the start, when he did arrive, I only read a book, and then for the rest of the month I have kind of increased that. But in total I read 6 books in January, which is more than what I did last year anyway, so well done me. And I read around 3,000 pages, 1 5-star, 1 4-star, and 4 3 stars. I think that's how it is. So those are my stats, and I will just get into it and show you the books. The first book that I read in the month was The House on the Borderland by William Hodgins. This is a supernatural story that was written in like the 1800s, or maybe even before then. I don't actually know, but it is considered like one of the first supernatural classical horror stories where horror kind of started. And I did make a note last year to read some more original horror stories. I read the oldest gothic horror story in the world, and I did a vlog for that, so I will drop that in the card. It is considered a classic now, and I can see why people often say that this inspired H.P. Lovecraft. So yes, this one was a 3-star read for me. It took me about 4.5 hours to get through this book. It's super intriguing, definitely supernatural. Difficult to kind of remember this book, to be fair, because it was the very first one that I read. It wasn't all that great in terms of like being a standout, but I think that it is definitely a good book to read, especially if you're on a journey like myself to see where all of our modern horror stories kind of stem from and get their inspiration from. So I definitely enjoyed reading this, and I think I have one more left that I need to read, which is The Willows, and then I think I have kind of caught up on like really early pieces of work, and then I will move into some kind of more modern in terms of like time classicals. So hopefully that makes sense. But yes, The House on the Borderland was definitely a good book to read, and I'm glad that I did that. Next up, I read Among the Living by Tim Lebon. This is like an eco horror story set in a polar setting, so it definitely screamed like something that I would enjoy. I did really enjoy reading this book. It is so atmospheric. Following 2 friends who are kind of estranged. They meet on a remote Arctic island after being estranged for a while, and they must work together to survive this harsh, violent region. They both kind of search the caves for gems, and they discover something that they weren't expecting to be there, and so it's a fight for survival. It is such a suspenseful story. It kind of blends thriller with horror, and the icy atmosphere, those caves, just everything about this book was really good, and I really enjoyed reading this book. Next up, we have a book that I have been anticipating because this author is one of my automatic buy authors, and that is C.J. Cooke. I read The Book of Witching by this author, and I absolutely adored this book. This was a 5-star read for me. I love everything witchy, I'm delving deeper into the historical fiction, and this historical horror was just incredible. I really love CJ's writing, and everything she writes is either a 4 or a 5 star book for me. I really adore her writing, it's so beautiful, and the storytelling is just incredible. This is essentially following two timelines, one in like 1594 and modern day 2024. There's a century-old mystery to be solved, and the Book of Witching kind of stands between the two women in both time. And it's such a beautiful story of witchcraft, the power that women have, the historical aspect of how these women were prosecuted and killed based on obviously speculation. And I really love witchcraft stories like that. It showcases women's power and how people are scared of that. So I really loved this book, and the overall outcome was incredible. And yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything bad to say about this. This was incredible. Loved reading it. 5 star read. Next we have The Drift by C.J Cooke. I recently did a live show with the Fright Club book club. I will drop a link to the video that's on C. Crits Reads channel. I spoke to Christine and Cliff about this book, and I originally gave this 3 stars, but now I'm reconsidering if maybe I should drop it to 2, because while we were discussing it, I started to learn like maybe I didn't really enjoy this as much as I thought it was. This is a average book for me. I was expecting so much more from it, and the drift has nothing to do with the snow, which was very disappointing for me, because I was wanting this to be an atmospheric read, something that is so polar based that it would kind of chill me to my core, and it didn't. We are following 3 timelines. There is one thing connecting everybody. They are all trying to get to the retreat, and there was so many characters that I just did not enjoy. There was too much going on. An apocalypse is thrown in there, and there's just so many weird things happening, and I don't really enjoy reading this. I was happy that it was over. I really wanted to see more of the Whistlers, but that didn't really happen, and the book was just full of disappointment. So I'm not sure if it should still be a 3. I'm thinking about dropping this down to a 2 star. Then I read Mr. Mercedes by Stephen King. You would have seen my Stephen King video where I want to read 13 books by this author in 2025, and Mr. Mercedes started that off this year. I read that on audiobook, and it was actually pretty interesting. Like I said, I'm getting more into the crime thrillers, and it was really fun. I enjoyed reading it, and I'm excited to read further into this series. I know that more people say that the next 2 are kind of better than Mr. Mercedes, so yeah, I'm looking forward to delving deeper into that series. So finally, the last book that I read in January was Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. This book I really enjoyed. Again, it's a historical fiction, kind of centered around the women's like home for unwedded pregnant girls. And this one is kind of similar to The Ghostwoods by C.J Cooke, where the Ghostwood is also set in a home for unwed mothers in Scotland, but that's the only thing connecting the 2 books. This one includes witchcraft and the craziness that happens with being a witch in a place like this. It was pretty interesting, and to be fair, as a guy writing about women and creating these women for his story, I feel like he did really well. and usually I don't enjoy when men are writing about women and women experiences, but I do know that he did get a lot of help from women to write this story, and it did go down well. I give it a 4 star. I really enjoyed it. The pregnancy and the birth scenes were just so gross for me. Pregnancy and labor and all that stuff is scary to me, and something that is like a horror movie in itself, and it makes me feel uneasy, and it did a good job of doing that. So yeah, it's a 4 star, and I'm actually going to see this author in May, so I'm glad that I have read the book before then, and can't wait to actually meet him and get some of my books personalized, because I adore this author. Grady Hendrix writes such campy horror stories. Granted, this is not campy, this is different for him, and it still went down well for me. I loved reading it and can't wait to actually meet him. And those are the books that I read in January, and now I'm going to talk to you about my February hopefuls. The first one I want to read is Seasonal Fears by Shauna Maguire. I have this out from the library, so I do need to read it before I think the 22nd or something like that. So that is why it's a hopeful read for February, because I do need to get to it. The other hopeful is Thin Air by Michelle Paver. I did read Dark Matter by this author previously, a few years ago. Again, it's a polar based story, so of course I want to read it. This one is set in the Himalayas in 1935, so I do want to delve into this because it is like a frosty ghost story, and I do love myself a ghost story set in winter, and I did really enjoy her other book, so I'm hopeful that this will also be a good one to read in February, especially as the winter season's coming to an end. Probably doesn't sound like it because it's so freaking windy. Next up is Hunted by Chuck Palahniuk. Very bad with pronunciation, but essentially this is on my must read for 2025, or else I'm getting rid of it. It's been sat here for a while. Not many people have said that they enjoyed this book, so I just want to read it, give it a go before I just get rid of it, because I'm not sure that's going to be one for me. It's a collection of short stories, I believe, and usually I don't enjoy those, so yeah, we'll see about this book. Then I want to finally finish reading all of Rachel Harrison's books, and the one left is The Return. I kind of want to finish her backlist because I want to do a video dedicated to her, where I'm ranking all of her books, and this is just the last one I have to read before I can do that, and so yeah, that's why it's on the list. I'm super excited. I love Rachel Harrison's writing. I've loved all of her books, some more than others, but very intrigued to read The Return, and I did get the US version because it's just so much nicer than the UK one. Another hopeful book that I would like to read is another one that's on my must read for 2025, or else I'm getting rid of it, and that's The Familiars by Stacey Halls. This is a historical fantasy, I believe. It's set in Lancaster in 1612, so it sounds incredible. I know people love this book, and it's been sat on my shelf for like 4 years and I haven't picked it up, so I kind of want to get to it this year. That's why it's on my list, and I thought I'd put it in for February and just hope that I can get to it. And finally, the last book that I hope to read, or at least attempt to start reading, because it is chunky, and that's Christine by Stephen King. So this is on that Stephen King list that I mentioned before. It's huge. Bag of Bones is like only 100 pages more than this, and it took me a good 9 months to read that. So Christine might be a hope to start in February and probably finish by December. But yeah, I am intrigued. It's a book that has been on the list for a while. It's in pop culture, know so much about it, but never actually read or watched it. So I'm hoping that I can do that in February and probably do a video where I'm reading the book and watching the movie, and just see what comes from that. That's it. Those are the books I hope to read in February and my January wrap up. Thank you so much for watching this. I am getting attacked by the sun, so I think it's time to call it quits. And let me know in the comments what you're reading in February this month, and let me know if you've read any of the books I've talked about. I would love to know your thoughts. And I guess until next time, keep your pages turning and embrace the darkness. Bye!